this is Eric Martin with Board Game Geek. I'm here with Tiffany Kyrez from Deepwater Games, looking at all of your titles, everything?
Well, most of them so far. We actually are missing one.
Okay. Maybe you can tell us about the company.
Yeah. So
new company.
Brand new.
Yes.
This is our first show as a company. I've obviously been to several shows and snuck in on this show several times.
Yes.
But Deepwater Games, brand new company. The idea is they've partnered with Emperor S4 Games, which is a Taiwanese board game publishing company, and you've probably seen some of their titles around, like Hanami-Koji, Planet Defenders, Burano.
That's right. Roundhouse was kind of
Roundhouse
early.
Yeah. So Emperor S4 has been wanting to bring their entire line, if possible, to North America, and they wanted to be able to do that with one publisher instead of having several publishers that they're interacting with. And so we were like, hey, we're interested in that. So the company is founded with the idea that we want to bring the games from Emperor S4, and we also want to take games from the North American market and bring them over to Emperor S4. In addition, we want to do some of our own titles, which we do have in development in-house. But to start and to launch the company, we're bringing over Emperor S4's titles from the last year. So we just did a Kickstarter. It finished and funded end of February, and we've already doing fulfillment on it, and it was for the 3 larger box titles. So the Emperor S4 edition games are the smaller box, and for the North American shelf presence, bigger boxes are kind of more commonplace.
USA!
Yeah.
Big boxes!
Yeah, we like to give a little bit of breathing room. If you sleeve the games, they'll fit better. This game, which is our next Kickstarter launching March 27th, fills this box. And so if you wanted to sleeve stuff, it would not work very well. So, yeah. So that's...
It seemed like more of a U.S. concern anyway with the sleeving.
For sure. So this was our first line, and they're shipping to backers now, and they'll be in stores in the next couple of weeks. So that's exciting.
That's right.
If you're familiar with any of these titles, they're basically the same as the Emperor S4, but we've increased the box size, and in the case of Shadows in Kyoto, we've also increased the board size, because it makes sense to make the board match the box.
That's right.
Yeah. And then our next Kickstarter, March 27th, is for Mystery of the Temples, but you can also get Sorcerer in the Stones and Roundhouse during that Kickstarter as add-ons, and we'll have a Founders Bundle as well.
Okay.
So yeah.
Roundhouse was made a big wave at Spiel.
And nobody brought it over.
Yeah. Well.
So we did.
There you go.
So you'll be able to get it on the Kickstarter, and then you'll be able to get it in stores shortly after. Origins is the official street date of these 3 titles, and these 3 titles, the street date is basically yesterday. So.
Okay.
Yeah, there we go.
There you go. From whenever you were watching this.
Yeah. Oh yes.
It was yesterday.
It was March.
Well, it doesn't matter
12th,
because if they watched it and they know it's yesterday, they know they're available.
They know it's always available. There you go. Origins 2018.
Okay.
Depending on when you're watching this.
So I don't know if you do short descriptions? I mean,
yeah, well, I can do the whole spiel on all of them, or we could just focus on one if you want to. It's up to you.
I don't know.
I can do them all. So this is a 2-player game. This is a 2-player only strategy game. If you think of Stratego, but it's a little faster paced. And then there's also asynchronous player powers that you can use in the game to make it more different and to have variety in your gameplay. And there's 2 variants, so you can mix and match in addition to the base game. So there's that one. This is Herbalism. It was our flagship game. So this one, it's a logic deduction game. Not a social deduction game, but there's a little bit of social interaction. But you take a deck of cards, you mix it up, you know the distribution of all the cards in the deck, and you take 2 of the cards and you put them to the side, and through the game you're trying to figure out what those 2 cards are by asking questions of other players and exchanging cards.
With different action cards, which can increase the difficulty.
And you can mix and match which ones you're using. And you can actually, we found this one works pretty well with families. And we're actually working on a 2v2 variant, so you can play with younger kiddos.
Okay.
And they can be on a team with you. So,
all right.
Yeah. Crow's Overkill is the party game of the line. And so in that one, you are trying not to wake your wife. So there's crows, and other players can play crows to distract. And you're trying to make it so that your character that's sleeping doesn't wake up.
Specifically, lover.
Yes.
Can be anyone.
I believe. Did we have to? Yes, lover, spouse.
Yes.
Lover, spouse, etc.
As opposed to the original story where I think it was a...
Yes. Yep. Yes, yes, yes.
All
The
right.
original fable, I guess they would say.
Yes.
Yes. So yeah, and that's another thing. So for the titles that we're bringing over, we're for the ones that make sense, we're making some cultural adjustments on cards. We're removing Mandarin from the boxes and the cards, and so it's just an English edition. And then we're also doing the English grammar proofing and
Right.
things like that. That would make sense. So including the rulebook and etc.
Okay.
So yeah, Mystery of the Temples. It's the flagship for our next Kickstarter, and so its box will be upgraded to the larger box size. And it's a double rondelle, so it's a rondelle with a rondelle inside of it. And you're going around and you're collecting crystals to use those crystals to break curses on temples. But the trick is the temples, you have to gather the crystals and place them in your crystal lattice in a specific order so that when you go to the temple, you can pull them out and summon them in the correct order. So it's a little tricky and you have to do a little bit of planning on your lattice. And then if you want to play an advanced variant, there are asynchronous player abilities, and there's 8 different ones, so you can mix and match and play. And it does 2 to 4 players, and yeah, it's very pretty set up. It's gorgeous.
Here, when we skip this, we'll do a separate one.
Okay,
Sorcerer's
okay,
Stones
cool.
and-
So Roundhouse is you are the head of the family, and you are moving around. So the idea is in China, in 17th century China, there were houses that would suit like your entire family generationally. So like you would have your parents, your grandparents, and then your kids would like live in this house with you. And so the idea is in the game you are the head of the household and you are moving around to different parts of your giant house with other players moving around to collect resources, to exchange them, to do trade goods and things like that. It's a heavier economic game. It's the heavier title in the line. It's 2 to 5 players. And if anybody has watched my stuff, my content, I really like 2-player games. In this game, I really like 2-player. So, yeah, once you get to know it and play it, setup is really quick, and the 2-player interaction is pretty nice and meaty for the game. So, yeah.
Okay. And you said you had titles under development as well. I don't know if you want to talk about them, but just in general, what's your goal with them? I mean, do you have a specific line you're trying to build, or?
So it's not necessarily a specific line, but one of the key focuses of the family, I was saying
The family of games.
the family of games,
Yes.
is we want to make sure that our game line is diverse and inclusive in regards to themes, cultures, and also the creators. So we want to make sure that if we are publishing a game that has a cultural theme, the designer is of that culture, or that we have influence of that culture so it's accurate and things like that. So we're not just appropriating that culture's theme for our own board game benefit. So there's that. In addition, we want to make sure that with these titles, because we're just bringing them over, some of them we've modified. So for example, Mystery of the Temples, we've modified it to be colorblind accessible. So if you're red, blue, green, red and green colorblind or blue and yellow colorblind, you can still play the game.
Right.
In addition to just being colorblind, period. So we can't do that to all of them at once, but moving forward, we want to make sure that all the games that we bring over and we publish, and that we have a say in the partnership and publishing of with Ember S4, have like those kind of considerations in mind. So yeah, we just want to make sure that the games are accessible as we can make them.
Makes sense.
In a variety of ways, while also being inclusive. So,
Okay.
yeah, the newer titles that we're working on in-house, we have some I can't say anything, but there's some stuff that the founders of Deepwater Games are actually 2 of the founders, Jacob and Travis. They are in the comic book industry and they own a comic book company, and thus they have access to several IPs in that world. So yeah, and then Nolan Nasser, our CEO, is a board game illustrator, and he does really beautiful art, and so we can do some really nice combos. So yeah, there's some pretty interesting stuff coming down the pipe. So,
Okay.
yeah.
All right. Thank you, Tiffany.
Yeah, you're welcome.
An overview.
Thank you.
And you can watch a separate video on Sorcerer and Stones.
There we go. Yeah.
Oh.
Somebody put that back wrong.